Wow, a lot of talk on our show today, but tell me, when is there not? Chef Mary Mamalides here. She's got some new fruity flavors for the new year for us to talk about. Now, again, I know a lot of New Year discussions have been happening on the show. Who says you can't say Happy New Year after the 10th? We're going to flog it to death.
This is Kelly and Company.
Well, I want to start the show by acknowledging, as a sports fan, a death that occurred today. It was announced that Bob Uecker passed away, announcer for the Milwaukee Brewers for years. Bob, quite a character, 98 years old, and this man brought so much to baseball. As an athlete, not too much, but as a broadcaster, tremendous. As an actor, tremendous as well. Some of you may not know that he was George on Mr. Belvedere back in the 80s. So you may want to check that out if you're a fan of Bob Uecker, dead, and to the Milwaukee Brewers, to his fan base, to his family, of course, condolences. Joining me on the program today, Nazreen Abdel-Majid. Well, it's a Thursday, and we've got lots of good conversation today, Niz, on the program. And, of course, mixed in with our fantastic guests. Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, let's start with this item I've got, because I'm feeling generous, but I started the show wondering, because I made the comment that allegedly you can't say Happy New Year after the 10th and all that stuff. Well, I'm even going to do more of a throwback. 46-year-old Christmas surprise. This is by Gabriel Costello, folks. Tim King, a Longburg resident, was performing a small remodeling on the bathroom of his parents' home when he found a piece of hidden treasure tucked away behind the drywall. This is a decades-old Christmas gift. Yay! Ho, ho, ho. The gift was wrapped up in festive Disney paper. That's really wonderful. And again, we're talking years ago, so we'll chat about that in a second. It had yellowed a little bit from its days hidden away, the yellow paper, or the paper, but the surprise did not stop there in that Disney wrap package. Upon closer inspection, Tim realized, hey, this gift has my name on it. King thinks the gift might have fallen down in the wall as his parents once used the attic ahead of holidays to hide gifts. You know, they'd stack up, and sometimes those things happen. This particular home had been in his family for more than 3 generations. It must have fallen down like between the walls because, there are a couple additions put onto this house, King said. Following the discovery, King waited for his mom so that she could finally get to see her son unwrap this gift. Now, she said to him, I don't remember buying you that. When he finally did get to opening it, he discovered a set of Matchbox Thunderjets, which he said would have been a great gift. Wow, he would have been about 6. So that's pretty awesome, King said. He believes the toy set would have been purchased around the Christmas season 1978. That's his belief. I think that's really, really cool, really special. Nazreen, your thoughts? I mean, first of all, we know he finally unwrapped that yellowing Disney paper and brought those out to mess around with them and, probably put them up on a shelf later and tells that story all the time. Now,
yeah, that's pretty amazing. This reminds me of a time capsule.
Yes.
Have you ever wanted to do one of those?
We did one, I think, in grade 2, I think it was. I have no idea what happened to it. I just remember us gathering stuff and thinking it was the greatest thing. But back then, when I was a kid, all the TV series talked about doing time capsules. Did you guys do it at school?
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't do it, but we were talking about it a lot. And all I remember is like Saved by the Bell type thing. All the TV shows back then, they had it, in
an episode, right? It's interesting too, because I couldn't tell you for the life of me. And again, we may have talked about it and it may have never happened, but I'm pretty sure I remember being outside and this thing being buried or whatever we did somewhere in the schoolyard, and probably somebody came back over the weekend and dug it up. But the point is, I'm trying to think what things we put in it. And for the life of me, I have no idea. I mean, I'm sure there was maybe some baseball cards or something like that. But we were in I would have been in grade 2. So whatever grade twos think in the late 70s, oh, this would be cool to use, we probably put in there. Do you have any idea, like when you guys were talking about it, what kinds of things did you guys talk about putting in it? Do you remember?
We were talking about like friendship bracelets,
Oh, wow.
VHS cassette tapes or whatever. I think it's VHS. I had a collection in my house, so I think it would be cool to add that to it. But like different types of scrunchies and trendy clothes and whatever it may be back then. Yearbooks also, that would be a cute idea to put in your yearbooks.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't even know where all my yearbooks went.
I find really, I never would pay for them. I was too cheap. I didn't have much use for them. But I want to go back to your VHS because the other day you brought up Blockbuster. I want to say Bandito Video, and there were so many of these different ones that were there. So when you say you guys had a collection, was it yours, the family, and any idea, do you recall how many tapes?
Oh my God, we had a full shelf. Not a full shelf, it was like a stand.
Wow.
And it's specifically for those tapes, for those movies.
Wow.
We had a bunch of movies.
Who started it? Like, was this something mom and dad started?
It was my dad.
Or?
He built it.
Yeah.
My dad built it. It was for the family, and we had it beside the TV stand, and it was a big stand. Like it was, it was pretty big. There was so much space to put all those VHS. So a lot of them those are the ones that we bought, but we did love going to Blockbuster to rent out like new movies and new shows.
Was that the Friday outing or Thursday night? I think we ended up going on Thursday, so we'd have it for the weekend.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
So we could start watching.
Fridays.
Yeah. So does anyone in the family still have a player to play them on that works?
No. No, we do have one, but we don't know, like it doesn't work.
Okay. So did anyone
need to get it fixed?
So like you guys, the kids, somebody transitioned to DVDs and now probably Blu-rays or just watching stuff on streaming services. Did anyone follow Dad's lead and start getting DVDs?
Yeah, we collected DVD players, and right when Blu-ray came out, we thought it was so impressive. We thought it was like bougie to get Blu-ray DVDs. I don't know why. It was always more expensive, and it was intriguing to us. So we ended up getting those. But my dad would always like convince us to get the original, get the cheaper ones. It's fine. It's the same. It's literally the same. But Blu-ray was always better quality back then. Yeah.
That's awesome. Speaking of quality, I'm going to ask Mark if he'll come in a moment to talk a little bit on the subject here I'm going to bring up now. We'll get Nisreen any comments you might happen to have on social media before we get to Christine, who's waiting in the wings for us. But one of the things we're doing, for those of you familiar with our podcast and the vanity cards, is changing them up a little bit. We have decided, Mark Aflalo making the suggestion, hey Mark, to make these things video. Many of you following our social media have seen the stuff that Nisreen has been putting out there, some of the clips from the show, and we're having a lot of fun with that. And also having the show up on YouTube, that kind of thing, and segments and content that we're going to be getting up there. Mark made the suggestion that the audio vanity cards, which get stuck on the end of the podcast generally, this week we've stopped doing that because, Mark, we're going to roll these things out on the weekend with a video component for those on YouTube and social media when Niz
blame me, of course. Blame me.
Oh, of course. Yeah. The idea, they'll say it's credit, right, Nisreen? Now, Nisreen will send out some of them, folks, depending if they kind of suit. But, Mark, where people can mainly find them will be the podcast and on our YouTube page.
That is the plan. I think it's an opportunity, Kelly, so that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. People don't have to wait through a podcast or wait for a video, because I feel that the content you're putting out is valuable. And it's nice to get a little bit of a look inside Kelly's brain.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited to hear those.
Well, they're fun.
They're more personal, you know? It's all about you and who you are.
Well, I mean, let's be fair. The history of it, Matt Agnew suggested that we do them. And in the old audio show, we started doing them, and we tacked them on the end of the podcast. And it gave everyone, as we went through this, a chance to weigh in, say something, talk a little about something that was they were feeling that day, something they heard on the show or wanted to experience with dealing with the show, or that a guest might have talked about. They went all over the place, and in time we will revamp them a little bit by including the others that are associated with the shows. I mean, it got to where the backup co-hosts were involved, and when we were over on the TV side, we had everybody. It was a great way for me to get out from doing them all the time. But 8 years of vanity cards, and now we're going to kind of reset them and do this video component, hopefully give them a little more stage. So we thank Mark for the great suggestion and all the efforts that Nazreen will be putting into putting some of them out there, and I'll keep running them off 2 to 3 times a week. We'll see if we can get back to getting them.
Don't thank me unless it's successful.
Yeah. And let us know what you guys think of them on our social media at Kelly & Co. AMI on Instagram and X. And you could also subscribe to us on YouTube, follow those videos as well, comment any comment you want, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Christine Malik joins us on the program now, and she's got some interesting things to discuss with us, giving us some background that I don't think a lot of us have thought about. She's telling us what she's found out about blind musicians while researching these, a little bit about their history and a project, Chris, that you're involved in. But let's talk about the musicians first. Those musicians that you're kind of curious about. Let's start there.
Yeah, so I think it was actually Kim Kilpatrick from Ottawa who got me thinking about this, which is that in history there were musicians who were blind, and the first one she cued me to was in Ireland, and he was so well known that there's statues of him. He was a harpist, a composer, and it got me thinking about how blind people lived in a sort of pre-industrial world where the idea of equity just didn't exist, really. It didn't Today we have equity as an ideal, at least, but back in the day that wasn't even really an ideal. It was just some radical thing that maybe a few people thought was a good idea. And so I started wondering about, for one thing, how blind people existed, how we lived day to day, but also how society viewed us and how we viewed ourselves. And as a musician myself, music was sort of where I gravitated to, of looking for people in history. And a friend of mine, Michelle Kuhn, who's a music historian and a flute teacher, she introduced me to two people who were well known in their day, Maria Theresa von Paradis and Frederick Dulon. So they both lived in Austria, Germany in the late 18th century. Von Paradis was a singer and a pianist and a composer, and Dulon was a flutist and composer. And these these people, they were known by Mozart and Haydn, famous musicians of their day. There's some literature to support that they were well renowned. They toured for sure in Europe, not just Western Europe, but Eastern Europe as well. And so I was really getting curious about how would those two people frame their sense of themselves? Because I argue this often. I often say this in my work on this area, that historically music and storytelling were probably the only two areas where blind people could achieve some economic status, earn some money, but B, achieve respect in society. And I think that we may be out of touch with how bad things probably were for people with disabilities in the past. There's some really shocking sort of anecdotal evidence of people with disabilities just either being straight up beggars or being the objects of outright ridicule and shame. And so how did these people who were lucky enough to be educated think of themselves in a world where others like them, others who were blind, were relegated to penury and ridicule, disrespect. And there's a gender component too. So for women especially, how did this play out? And one example is, so Frederick Doolan, he was a well-known flutist. He was very well thought of in his day. He performed publicly. He toured. He went to St. Petersburg, Russia, and so his sister was sighted, and she was assisting him. And one of the questions I ask myself is, okay, so day to day, Friedrich and his sister, they're going about their activities. She's guiding him, just such a small practical thing, but she's guiding him. So she's a woman in a society that didn't think much more of women than they did of disabled people, but she's guiding him, she's leading him, she's sort of taking the forefront in their movements through the world. So those questions get really interesting to me too. Is how did gender play into this, and socioeconomic status? Obviously you had to have a certain amount of money in your family in order to just be educated. um, but the primary thing that interests me is how did these people think about themselves, and how did how did they compose a sense of self and maintain a sense of self and dignity? And we think, moving through our days, that we have a big job of educating the public, and we do. It's ongoing and relentless. But back in the past, pre-industrial, sort of pre-equity, their job must have been enormous. And so to achieve the respect of famous people like Mozart and Haydn and other music reviewers of their day was no small task. So
Mm-hmm.
as a storyteller and a blind person, these are questions that have really been interesting me lately.
It's the image you get in your mind of the time. I mean, we hear the stories of Louis Armstrong as a black performer having to wait, and when he was going to perform, go in the back door, perform at so many white clubs that would allow only whites, and make an exception for he, the artist, would pay him less than others. But his career, his nobility, what people knew of this man, leaps and bounds. He was a master, right in there with any white jazz performer at the time. You rewind as you're talking about doing, and you see those images of things of, okay, the guiding, the getting around. Who's booking? How did your name get out there? Were you a phenom? Were you classed as a, forgive the term, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for using it, a freak?
Yeah.
And that's what made you special, because you didn't speak. Nobody spoke to you. You were brought there by your sister, sat at the piano, put the flute in your hand, and you amazed people because you wonder, did they have a tongue? Were they treated like they did, or did everybody come up and say, he did a good show today? Well, has he had something to eat yet? We say that as blind people. People talk to the other person, but I bet you even then they treated him more like that freak, almost like a, hey, it's interesting to watch the piano playing dog.
Absolutely.
I really wonder about the booking. But mostly, Chris, and I'm curious, are we talking people who've played with their ear? How did they learn? We didn't have Braille music. Well, it was coming on, but in the late 1800s. Okay, let's say that. But there are so many of these artists that would have started not necessarily playing a piano on the street, begging for money, of course, but maybe the flute. But these are beyond that. And how were they viewed in their communities, cities, towns, countries, the world, as they came to be? These are fantastic questions, because I'd just like to know, starting at what age, what was the family, like you said, were they economically balanced well? How the heck did they even put their hands on a piano? Who the heck taught them? There was printed music. Did they play by ear from grandma, who was gifted, but because she was able-bodied, maybe, she's just a piano player, or a dime a dozen? I wonder.
And it's an interesting question about the how they learned music. Doolan had a reputation for what you might say as an eidetic memory, like he could hear something and reproduce it. Von Paradis, So we tend to think of Braille as like there was nothing and then there was Braille. And actually,
Right.
that's not quite true. There were predecessors
No.
to Braille, and Von Paradis, I think they both experimented with tablature that was tactile. And so they, of course, had to rely intensely on their memory, even as we do today.
Yes.
But
Yes.
the Braille was not the only iteration of a tactile script, and so they were experimenting with that for music for sure. But you raise a great point. So one of the the first schools for the blind in France, there's an account of the philanthropist, the aristocrat who started it, and his experience of being activated was he went to a performance that was a comedy show sort of thing, and there were blind people on stage who were handed instruments and clearly didn't know how to play them. They hadn't been taught, and so they were seen as comedic. They were ridiculed by the audience, and that was their role, was to be ridiculed. And this man found that completely unacceptable and barbaric, and he had the insight to understand that with the proper education anyone can learn. And so the extent of the disrespect is probably difficult for us to truly understand, and
Yeah.
hence the leaps that some people were able to make to see blind musicians as human beings and people would have been equally impressive of a leap for them to have made.
And we think of it mainly in the music field, right? Like storytellers were usually that sage old individual who went blind later in life, and people go to the blind man who has all seeing, or that one person, elder, who's been blind, who sits there and people go and ask for his wise wisdom. That's what we have depicted through what we've seen in media over the years, maybe history and that kind of thing, as a place. But none of them ever depict anyone in what we would consider favorable light. And
Yeah.
it's very interesting because I'm not going to say there was an acceptance of music before any other of the arts as we know them for blind people to be involved in, but I don't think I'd be going too far out a limb if I did suggest that, compared to certainly not acting, compared to
Absolutely.
other things they do, certainly not athletics, and certainly not storytelling.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with that, because storytelling and music are stationary activities. Like you can sit in one
Yes.
spot and do them. So mobility is off the table. You don't have to worry about that. So I'm totally with you to say that I think those fields were the
First.
first ones where, yeah. And interestingly, you mentioned sort of the idea of someone who became blind later in life. And this is something that interests me too. So many people, even more so than today, would lose their vision in later life. And so, for example, Paganini, very well known composer for the violin, very drama king kind of performer in his
Yes.
day, he went blind later in life, but we don't really talk about it. And
No.
why would we talk about it? There's no need to talk about it. He's already famous. And yet, I feel that particularly with the fact that more and more of the blind population today are older people, there's some value in knowing that people who were successful in their fields continued to be successful in their fields after they lost their vision,
Yeah.
even
Because not
back
everybody
in the
makes it
day.
over that hump. Regardless
No,
if
no, not
you're
at all.
just like if you're a mechanic, if you're a high performance driver, if you are a singer, a lot of people, unfortunately, something happened to them, lose a limb or go blind, they're done. A lot
Yeah,
find their
it's
way
true.
through it somehow.
It's true. And I think examples are, I know for me, this is very subjective view, but the biggest leaps forward for me when I've become, as I step up and up and up in terms of being self-reliant, is when I've seen role models, when I've seen someone doing
Yeah.
something who's blind. I go, oh, you did what? Oh, okay. Well, if you
Mm.
can do it, it's doable. And if anyone can do something, surely I can. And so the just the idea of role models is so basic, but it's real. And so it's not only the people like Dulon or Von Paradis who were blind from childhood, but famous musicians or anyone in the limelight who lost their vision later in life. We don't tend to talk about it because it doesn't seem relevant, but I think
Yeah.
for our community, it is relevant to know that about historic figures.
Nazreen,
Yeah,
what do
I
you think
think
of
it's very
mentors?
I think it's very
Sorry.
cliche
Yeah.
when we say that, these people, inspire us, and they're look at them, they're doing um, their work, but they're blind or they're low vision or whatever. But I hate that word, inspired. But at the
Hmm.
same time, I agree with you, Christine. Like it's literally uh, the same thing. You
But,
get
but what about a
mentor.
mentor? Like if you had access to that mentor, Niz, like I know what we're talking about, the media, the way we portray certain people, like, oh boy, they're
Right.
amazing to be able to walk up those stairs because they're blind. But if you
Mhm.
see a mentor that you have access to, I find the value that just unmatchable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's influential. You look up to that person, you follow
Yeah.
their lead, they guide you, they support you. I think having support in your environment is a big, big difference. And even when you're not close to that person and they're not your mentor, and you look up to a celebrity that has gone through that journey, right? Um, it's still influential. I still find it influential, even when you call it an inspiration or not. It's still somebody you look up to. You feel like you are connected in some way because you're going through a similar journey. So
It's a
I
good
feel like,
fine line too, Nazreen.
yeah,
Like as you say, influenced or inspired. Like we're sort of cued now by the word inspired. We all kind of cringe, but it's
Yeah.
yeah,
true. We
right.
can't deny it. It's true. And I
We
have
can't deny
mentors
it.
in my life who,
It's part of life.
yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
exactly.
It's true. It's true.
I have had mentors. I was thinking about this the other day. I was having a conversation with someone, and I'm blessed. I've had what I would consider mentors. I mean, at least since I was 12 or 14 years old. For one thing or another, people that I now look back, some I definitely pointed, that's my mentor. Others, wow, they were a mentor. How about you, Chris?
Oh, yeah. Mine didn't really show up so much until later life. I tended to, because I was in the mainstream school system and I didn't encounter a lot of other blind people. But as I grew up, I started meeting people and like they like, oh, I'm going to this restaurant that I've never been to before. Like, how are you getting there?
Yeah.
Or, I'm traveling to Calgary. Who are you going with? Oh, I'm going on my own. And just these one-liners a blind person would throw out, and it would just send me into this tailspin of like, oh.
But then the
ha,
next thing
ha,
you'd
ha,
probably
ha.
ask is, how are you doing that? Aren't you a bit nervous? What time? And
Yeah,
they would fill you into where you'd say,
yeah,
yeah, that's right. That's right.
yeah,
I can.
yeah. And it's
I
so
had a
simple.
I remember having a guy who would phone me in my summers when I was still at W. Ross. I met a gentleman through amateur radio, and he would call me up and say, what are you doing? Oh, I was about to sit down and watch Days of Our Lives. It's on at 1 o'clock, right? uh, yeah. It's done at 2 o'clock, right? Yeah. There's a bus by your place at 2:05. Come downtown and meet me for a little while. Now
Oh,
remember, and he'd give me the directions where he was going to be. He worked at one of the old CNIB tuck shops at the time. He would
oh
give me
yeah.
the direct. You're crossing this street, then you cross this street, you make a right, you cross the opening to the parking
Hmm.
lot there.
Hmm.
Be careful. Come on inside and work with me, and we'll take the bus home later. Uh, 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 okay. And that was a blind
Okay.
gentleman who was my
Yeah.
mentor. And I
Yeah.
tell you, at first oh man, should I answer the phone or no? Oh man, I
Right.
don't want to. Come on down. And it was just like, oh, that's
Right.
good. Enjoy your show and get down here.
You
And
learn so
my parents
much.
loved it. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Chris, the project, with this, is this what we're talking about? Your research on this, and what do you want to do with it? Or are we
Yeah.
looking at another project?
Yes, we are. I know. I've got so many. I
Good
need a
for
project
you.
manager. So this is relating to a Canada Council grant that I'm applying for, along with my friend and colleague Michelle Kuhn. So our long-term goal is to create a performance piece that will involve music of Dulon and Von Parody being performed by professional
Nice.
musicians, and some
Yes.
stories that I, as a writer and storyteller, will fabricate based on the lives of Dulon and Von Parody. So I've already done. A couple of stories. So they're historical fiction, basically. I take the facts
Right.
that I know, and then my writer imagination just churns them around. And there's no documentation that Von Paradis and Dulon ever met. And yet they were both Austrian, they were contemporaries. There's no chance they didn't meet. How could they not have met? So one of the story I have so far is about their first meeting and what was that like? Because people, as we say, they're individuals. They're really at different places with blindness and how they view it. And my two characters, I propose very different approaches that they have to their disability. So the long-term aim is to produce this performance piece, but also along with some podcasts, because a performance piece is there and then it's gone. It's ephemeral. But
Yeah, for sure.
there's so much good material here. So we also want to make some podcast pieces out of it that talk about their lives and some of their stories and highlight their music. So the Canada Council is basically it's you taxpayers. So thank you in advance to all of you taxpayers if I get the grant. But what it will allow us to do is to do a lot of research. And there are some manuscripts and scores of Dulon's work that are literally still, even to this day, only available in Europe. Oh dear. So Michelle and I hopefully will be able to go to Europe, and she will be able to do the primary source research of the music, particularly of Dulon, which is not available in North America. And I, as a writer, will just get the chance to walk where they walked and be in the spaces where they were. And Michelle's got this lovely scheme, which at first I hated, but now I love. She said, no matter how wealthy you were or were not in the 18th century, traveling in Europe was just crap. It was smelly and long and slow and uncomfortable and dirty and grimy and unpredictable. And I want to reproduce that. And I went, ugh. And she said the best way to travel in the crappiest way possible in Europe today would be to take a bus from Vienna, to
Yep.
Paris in 16 hours. Now in Europe, you can travel on the train and people talk about it like it's heaven. But if you want to travel grimy and be endure as much hardship as you can, that's the way to do it. So Paris is a draw because Von Paradis was involved after she stopped performing. She was involved in founding a music school for girls in Paris. And I want that to be a huge component of our research too. So there'll be some grimy travel in order to sort of reproduce the pain and suffering of travel.
Yeah, because it would have been crazy travel, but to go to Paris, which was so vibrant then as it is now, it was the place to be. And as a musician and as somebody that at the time when the iron's hot and you're there, can you just imagine how you would have been treated regardless of disability or not? Still, not as good as some musicians, of course, and still everything you had to do to deal with getting around. Wow. Dumb question. How do you think the results, what you guys get when you finish and can sit back at the podcast, I'm looking at steps towards, okay, who do we investigate next?
Well, there's the Irish harper that I talked about, Turlough O'Carolan. He, as I say, renowned in Ireland to this day. There's statues of him. So I just want to find out more about. So even deaf artists aren't where I go to because that's not my community. But Beethoven composed when he was deaf. That's pretty extraordinary. And so this tells me that there are more musicians and storytellers that we just don't know about. So is it possible to research and discover more? We'll see. But for me, what I like about the idea of a long-term goal is for us as a blind community to feel connected to our community members of the past and how did they live? How did they make a place for themselves in a society that was way less welcoming even than ours is? And what kinds of mental resilience would it have taken to build a strong sense of identity? And what practical things were they doing, like inventing their own music tablature that was tactile? And how resourceful were they? Because we all as disabled people know that resilience and resourcefulness are the best allies, the best qualities that we have. And so how did our community members in the past experience that? And how did they find the resilience and resourcefulness? What did that mean for them in their world? Those are questions
Yeah.
that really interest me.
And there's so many people who would now identify as having a disability that would have never been on, you would never be able to find information on them because they didn't identify then. They were
Of
not,
course.
wouldn't have been classed as, maybe they were different. Maybe they did things in a way that you could look and say, oh, of course they, you know, and you would understand that, but that's not something we'd know today. I kind of think of this too as so many different things we find in our Indigenous communities that we're now learning about, different things, the Black communities of Canada that we know so much about the American Black community and through history and what strife and everything like that, but we don't know about the Black Hockey League that existed in Nova Scotia, you know, before the NHL existed and stuff like that, and how that was stopped. There are so many different things like that. Chris, good luck with this. This sounds like a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Great to chat about it.
Yeah, hard work getting the money, but
Fingers crossed. Wish me luck.
have fun with that. We will. This is really a long-term project there that they're working on, Michelle and Christine. This is going to be tremendous. Good luck. And we look forward to those updates on the progress when we have Christine back here on the program. Nisreen, I started the show talking about a found Christmas gift. I love it to sit down and think that this guy's got it up on a shelf, maybe even when no one's around, takes them out and plays with those cards and stuff like that. You want to talk a little toys too.
Yeah, because not only you can't just find a present in the wall. There's more stuff you can find, obviously, because there's another story. If you're taking on a major renovation in your home, it's expected that you might get a few surprises, such as those Christmas gifts that have been hiding in your walls. But a Vancouver Island couple did not expect this. Connor Nigis and Brienne Hinkery were renovating their property earlier this year when they found hundreds of stuffed animals in their walls.
Wow.
Now that sounds creepy. This is like a start
Really
of
weird.
a good horror movie. That's what I'm saying. The home's previous owners were apparently using them as insulation. I mean, that's smart, but still creepy. Connor told Global News, "I was just renovating some drywall and I had a pair of eyes staring back at me after I ripped off a piece." Just picture that in your head, just like ripping off a piece of the wall and all you see is just an eyeball.
Hi there.
Yeah. So the couple recorded themselves prying the walls open to discover more stuffed animals. And it's 115 to be exact, by the way.
You imagine the whole, like, to repair this place? Like, wow. Like, well, I guess we're renovating.
It looked like in the video, it looked like it was from the ceiling to the floor. So it was a lot of stuffed animals. 115 stuffed animals in the wall. You're using them as insulation, you know, that could work.
Yep.
Still creepy. So yeah.
If you had a fire, could you imagine how bad that would be? Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's bad. So as I mentioned, they posted on TikTok, got a lot of attention. People reached out to them asking to buy individual animals, which he said dated to the 1980s and 1990s. So that's good.
That is.
You got some money out of it. But what do you think of that? Because
I think it's
wild.
just so interesting it would be done like that. And if you could just, like, imagine you're having a real rough day, really bad, things have just been awful, but the one thing you can go over and do is use a putty knife, start cutting into the plaster, and hey, look, it's some of the Disney characters. Oh, look, it's the Muppets over here. And just, like, how would you feel? And what a stunt. What a film you could make. Yeah, no, I agree. It would be like opening up and finding clowns back there, stuffed clowns or something, right? Little, but really, really cool. Thanks for bringing it. That's awesome. Folks, remember to check out our podcast from your platform of choice and give us, when you're in there, a rating and review. Also, please, on our YouTube page, get up there and subscribe to it, please, so you can keep up with all the content that we're putting up there. I'd like to talk first, and I'll bring Mary Mamalidi in for this because, again, Mary, welcome back to the show. I kind of need a bit of an opinion on this one from you and Nisreen. I don't know how big you are on inspired food, ladies, and something you get that's, well, let me explain. Cheez-It launches pizza inspired flavors. Let me get that word out. The brand now in their lineup includes margarita pizza and pesto mozzarella varieties. Now the food, this is from Jan 14, this came out. Cheez-Its announced it. Their new inspired flavors at Cavalovas, I think is the name of the company. Cheez-It Cracker Blend announced these 2 new flavors, and they're always looking for new ways to offer out bold, cheesy flavors that their fans love. And with their new lineup of these pizza-inspired lineup, we're bringing the irresistible taste of pizza to every bite. Now, Carla Traxaler said this, senior brand director for Cheez-Its. From the sweet, savory burst of Cheez-It snack is margarita pizza to the vibrant, creamy blend of cheese and mozzarella for the other pizza flavor. Now, into this, ladies, I'll start with you, Mare. Is this something, do you like Cheez-Its, number one?
I do. And I will. Okay, let me say this. Let me start with, I will try something at least once before I decide to kind of exit out, or at least I try to. Would I say that I would reach for a bag of this and say, ooh, I got to have a margarita pizza Cheez-It? No. Would I try it? Yes, because I'm curious as to what it would taste like. But to kind of reach for it, that it's something that I would kind of crave, I don't think I would.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not a Cheez-Its fan necessarily. I think I would try the pesto one. Niz, you're not on board with this either. Do you not eat these at all, Niz? Like, is this some kind of food? I think I'm almost prejudiced against Cheez-Its for some reason. I just think, who would eat that? Like, I'm kind of like that about macaroni and cheese too. People say, man, what are you kidding? People make macaroni and cheese with 7 cheeses. They do all sorts of fancy things with it. To me, I'll eat Kraft Dinner. And I know that's ridiculous, and I apologize to people out there because I'm not a big pasta person. We all know that. But it's so silly.
You shouldn't apologize.
But unfortunately,
Yeah,
it's just weird though.
Don't
because I put Cheez-Its in the same area. Why would I eat that? But maybe this would get me to have them around and try this pesto out. But not
I
you
think
two.
people do too much, and I agree with you about the Kraft Dinner. No, I apologize. I think people do too much. They try too much. But I'm with you. Honestly, Mary, like it's the same thing for me. If it's there, I'll try it out just because I'm curious, but I won't go out of my way to snatch it. No.
Yeah.
But
because I'm naturally
I am
curious.
Open-minded. Yeah, I am open-minded. But I'm scared at the same time. So if it's there, I'll give it a try. If it's not, I'm not going to go out of my way. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit there and say, I need a bag. I need a whole bowl of Cheez-Its. No, I don't do that. I mean, but if I were to have it, I think I would definitely just try it. Again, curiosity gets me.
Yeah.
I also hate throwing out stuff, so I'm scared to not like it and throw it out later. So that's part of it.
I think I better use the term I'm a snob as opposed to prejudice against them, but I honestly feel why would anyone bother with that? And I know there are people out there who love it as a great snack, and it's, sitting there watching a game or watching a movie and having that kind of thing. But I will say, this is the kind of thing that would make me stop and say, oh, maybe not necessarily the pizza flavored. Maybe that's where I don't know. But maybe to at least go and say, what other flavors do they offer this in? Folks, you can email us, kellyco@ami.ca. Always want to hear from you. Send an email to us. Marketing will pass it on. You can call us at 1-866-509-4545. Again, another great way to reach out to the program. Leave us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Mary's here, and today we're spicing things up literally. She's dishing on 2025 flavored trends, from boozy sweets to TikTok's latest obsessions. Mary, let's dive right in, because this year is all about experimenting with flavors. What should we expect, and how does this change the way we think of food?
Okay, so this year, flavors are less about extreme shock value like they were in 2024.
Right.
We had the ghost pepper potato chips. Everyone was trying them, everyone was videoing themselves, everyone was choking, doing the whole thing. But this year,
Yes.
really doing the whole thing about it. So it's more about curiosity and experimenting with unusual flavors this year and flavor combinations. So something like, imagine a strawberry margarita inspired cupcake, or a mojito glaze on a cake, right? I'm not saying this has never been done, but you're going to see a lot more of it this year. There's so many cool things happening in 2025, and this would be one of them because mocktail flavors are stepping into desserts in a really big way. Spicy foods. I mean, I want to
stop you, Mare, because
yeah,
on a level of ladies, and I won't spend too much time with this. It's just a thought. It's interesting because obviously there's no alcohol. Obviously, as you say, mocktails are becoming quite a thing. We know they're very much selling at the liquor stores and places that you can buy them. And I always think it's a good thing. We're hearing so many different findings about alcohol and things like that. And it's a good thing to keep us up on that or have an alternative, whether people are going to charge through the ceiling like they do for alcohol for them. But is there a downside? And again, it's hard because these are mocktail flavors, not necessarily, hey, this is rye-infused cupcakes that we want you to eat with just a taste of, so you get the taste of rye as a young kid and then go out and buy a Magnum or two. These are they kind of a better positive thing, Mary?
Yes. I mean,
other than the sweets.
It definitely is. I mean, like you said, we're all leaning more towards mocktails. Yes, and if you do go out and order a mocktail, you will get that hefty price as you were purchasing an alcoholic drink. But because they stand behind, it takes more to make the mocktail. Right. But
and they're not alcohol-free Baileys. We do that with things that taste like it, where one could argue, well, yeah, but, these are things that have started out being non-alcoholic, and these are their flavors.
Correct. And these are their flavors. And infusing them, it just gives a little bit of a twist and a little bit of an excitement to the standard cupcake. You get a vanilla cupcake before.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
It's adding a little bit of extra. And I do think that this would be a lot of fun. And I like the fact that the alcohol is removed from it.
Me too.
I mean, coming from an Italian home. I mean, we had, infused flavored.
Yes. Infused flavored olives.
Our birthday cakes, for God's sake, had a little bit of alcohol in them.
Yeah.
We're tasting that very young. But I mean, not enough to do anything. But anyway, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah. All right. Sizzle.
Okay. Spicy foods.
Spicy.
Right? We're finding balance this year. So like spicy watermelon juice, right? It's got a kick of chili with it, which is really interesting. So we're not talking about overly powerful spicy drinks. We're talking about something sweet where the heat just adds a little bit of balance to that sweetness and tampers that sweetness a little bit, but gives a little taste of that's unexpected to it, I think is what I would like. Right. It's got, or maybe even like some savory sweet salad dressings, using combinations like blueberry basil, strawberry rosemary, which are nice combinations. So it's all about layering flavors and it's giving that sensory experience. So you're thinking you're having one thing and then you're getting that, ooh, what's that at the back type thing.
Yeah.
Right. You're eating something with blueberry in it and then you get in that basil. So it's not just heat or sugar overload this year. It's a combination and it's really melded together really nicely.
Yeah, we went through a phase where everything's maple, right? So you knew what you were getting. This is going to be an interesting different because it's Nazreen, it's a different taste burst almost. You expect something else and it's a different combo you would have never thought of.
Yeah, and some people are like, why put fruit in salads? Right?
Oh,
I love fruit in salads. I love fruit in salads, but some people
depends on the fruit.
See?
Depends on the fruit. I'm one of those people. I think, strawberries go well with it. There's certain apples are good in salads, but it depends. Just people people do extra.
Tangerine.
I'm telling you, people are doing
mango.
Extra.
Mango. I mean, I love it all.
I love mango in a salad.
Oh my God, it's so good. Yeah. See,
I love it all.
I mean?
But if you have that thing where, like you said, Nazreen, where it's like some fruits, great way to try it is infuse it into your dressings.
Oh, that's
smart.
an idea. Yep.
I never thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
I'm not just a pretty face.
But when you think about that, what would be your favorite fruit to use? The mango?
The mango.
In my
It seems
dressing?
pretty common, right? Yeah.
Mango's amazing. Blueberry, strawberry, pear. There are so many
yes.
combinations that you wouldn't think of, but just adding a little touch of it to your dressing, blend it in, so good.
Wow.
It
Oh,
really
you know what
does.
I love? Pomegranate.
Yes.
That's good too.
A beautiful, like, chef's kiss taste, okay?
Yeah.
In salad.
It's got that surprising pop.
Well, and I have trouble.
Yeah.
I get bored with salad. You go mixing fruit. I love it. I could eat it and eat it and eat it. And we talk about this with nutrition of how many servings that we should have of our vegetables and fruit a day. And I always fall short. Mayor, next.
Yes. Trending. What's trending online. So naturally, I am huge on Instagram. To me, I find so many things on Pinterest, on Instagram, very useful, very helpful, and very inspiring. When I go to TikTok, this is where I go to find those carnival food stand kind of items that are trending on TikTok. This is where I go. I mean, I usually call it the infomercial of social media, right? Because you're getting bursts of information, and it's usually those wild dishes that you find on there, or wild combinations. So right now on TikTok, there's a lot of wonton wrappers, right? And people are they're flooding people's feeds. And the reason why is because, we figure wontons, they're versatile, they're easy to use, they're available in all major grocery stores, and it's something quick to do. And that's what makes them very viral. And so what I've noticed was a lot of crispy wonton chips, where they're taking the wontons, deep frying them, a cheesy taco, and then just sprinkling either some cinnamon over top, some sugar, whichever you want.
Right.
Cheesy taco cups. Right? Sweet wonton desserts that are filled with like Nutella or apple pie filling. Creators are even going as far as posting creative ways to fold them, air fryer hacks, unexpected flavor combinations. This one, I don't know, and I'm going to revert to both of you if you would try it. Pickled wontons. So deep fried pickle wontons.
I'd try it, but I would have a very limited length of enjoying it. It's one of those foods that would saturate my taste buds very quickly.
This reminds me of CNE type of food.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's like that carnival eat type
it's
thing.
the fry with
Yeah,
it
you're right.
and the bitter. I would think at first, oh, this is good. Second, third, fourth bite. Oh, get this away from me.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those meals that you just get bored of real quick. That you're like over it. You're over the taste. At first, it's exciting, it's surprising, but after that, you're done.
Mary, are you just going to see these things as you go through and just nada? Like, do you find you have a way of the more... I mean, I know these people presenting these things are presenting them in a very clear, serious way. It's not just like, hey, man, this is a shock thing. I want to see you try eating this. It's not, hey, look, here's 10, fried worms. See if you can eat them. I get that. I get this is legitimate video. But do you see more that you just, And I'm not just talking taste choice. I mean, just silly.
Shock factor? Is that what we're thinking of here? Like,
I think
people
that's
are doing
what
things just to get a reaction.
Yeah, hits. Yeah.
I think it lies on both. So yes, they do it to get the reaction. And a lot of it, even on TikTok, relies on people viewing the video, clicking, whatever the case is. All I know is at the end of the day, use your judgment.
Yes,
is this something you really do like? Don't eat it or don't test yourself because you've seen it out there. You've heard about it so many times that you figure you have to do it too. No.
Yeah.
Do it because it really does interest you.
I've seen those videos
food is enjoyable.
where they're exactly. I've seen those videos too where they're more of thirst traps than really ingredients, right? And people go for that. So it's all about the views when it comes to TikTok and Instagram, where people go crazy in videos when they're not even actual meals. They just, the way they make it seem, they look so good. But as you said, like, use your palate.
Yeah. And I think that's what I was trying to get at, eh?
Yeah.
Right. Right. And I think that's what I was trying to get at. How much do you wade through for somebody who's saying, oh, I never really thought of using it that way. I didn't know. Mary, do you want to talk quickly about a recipe for us?
Absolutely. I mean, this one's fun, and I think everyone should try it. Try making a bowl of hot honey popcorn. It's sweet, it's salty. Honestly, I think you'll love this snack. So all you need, get a bag of microwave popcorn. No need to do stovetop, although I love stovetop. Don't hate on me. I love it. Combine melted butter, some honey, some sriracha in a small bowl. Whisk that together. You want it all combined. Dump your popcorn once it's popped into a large bowl. Drizzle with the butter mixture. Season with some salt. Stir, coat. Sit back, watch a movie, and enjoy.
That sounds amazing. I feel like that would melt in your mouth.
Yes, it does. And just don't overdo it.
No,
you just
no.
a little bit way.
And Nazreen, you could get some of those old VHS movies and watch them from the collection if you find that VCR that might work. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Mare.
Thank you.
Appreciate the tips. We'll talk to Mary next week when she joins us on the program as she does every Thursday. Nazreen, I will talk to you tomorrow when you join me on our Friday edition of the show. Have a great day on that show, folks. Let's find out what happens when you combine exercise with engaging dramatized audio. You know who's doing that? Michael Fair. He reviews the ZRX app. We'll talk to him tomorrow on the show. We also have some great conversation involving the Alliance for the Equality of Blind Canadians, some stuff they're doing. We'll get into that leading off the show tomorrow. Fedora's off to you. Have a good day.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly and Company. Follow us on all social media. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.